How are you? Having fun down there? No bad anyway. Why not?
Let the record show it's 7 minutes after 7 minutes after 5. I'll call to order the special meeting of the Durant City Council of April the 4th, 2018. Tim, would you mind leading us in our invocation? And then Destry, would you lead us in our flag salute? If you would, please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you. You may be seated. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Here.
Here. Here. For the record, all members are present. We welcome all the members here, and we welcome those in the audience that are in attendance. I'd like to just met this young man a few minutes ago, Michael Clemens, with our newspaper. Michael, welcome. Our first order of business this afternoon is to consider approval of a contract between the City of Durant and the Durant Industrial Authority. And council members have their copies, and City Manager, I believe you have some comments or presentation.
Briefly, Mayor and Council, this contract between the City of Durant and the Industrial Authority has gone back and forth over the past couple of months in the wording. Essentially, before you tonight is the contract that will be presented to the DIA next Monday. It essentially, it has been restructured since the last contract, in effect that the city will be, again, the primary employer for as the Economic Development Director, who will oversee the economic efforts and the direction for the DIA. The biggest difference between the last time that we had an individual hired to do this job and to this one is that the director, even though they will be carrying out the duties and the mission and the goals for the Durant Industrial Authority, will also be housed in office here at City Hall and will be under the supervision of the Durant City Manager for employment purposes. We've had lots of discussions. We had a legal opinion that was issued by our city attorney stating that if you're a Durant city employee, you have to be under the supervision of the city manager. But they will be working hand in hand with the DIA and the board of directors in carrying out the goals and missions of the industrial authority. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Council members have any questions for the city manager?
Tim, how will we base our salary for that position?
It will be, and I will preface this by saying, and I forgot to mention this earlier, Councilmember Dills, we will be in the hiring process advertising regionally, nationally for this position, and the salary will be set depending on qualifications and what was probably in a salary range that's more in this area as far as the next director goes, based on their experience, based on their education, based on several factors involving their qualifications. So this is not just going to be a situation to where the city is going to simply, conduct interviews. They will be interviews with the board as well, because I feel like it has to be a good fit for the city, and it also has to be a good fit with the DIA board as well. So,
and they will report to you
on a day-to-day basis. They will report to me. They will still be very active with the DIA. There's been some discussion as to what other duties here economic developmentally wise here at City Hall, they will be involved in. I have expressed some interest and to the DIA board is I feel strongly that this individual, when not working on industrial and recruitment for their industrial park, should be also heavily involved in recruiting retail to our city. And I think that's a very good thing for us to have somebody that is going to build those relationships with developers, retailers around the nation, and trying to do their best in getting, because as we know, we live and die by sales tax here in Oklahoma, and that's important for us. And I think Councilmember Gruby brought up some good points a couple weeks ago with a post she made showing the vacant buildings. And we do know that once we have some of the things that are going to be happening with the Choctaws and some other stuff, we're going to have a lot of space available. And I think this individual would be great in building those relationships. So when we have folks coming to town that show some interest in Durant, that we have that relationship already established, and this individual very involved with that as well.
Okay, so a dual role there.
Absolutely.
Tim, what happens if we are the employer, but he is working hand in hand with the DIA board? What happens when the city and the DIA are at odds?
Well, I think that's going to be a situation. The director itself is simply similar to my position, where if we have council members at odds on issues, they're going to be their function and goals is to carry out the missions, not to really get into that level of.
But who's he answering?
He's going to be answering to the city manager, and I answer to the council.
And maybe I could even reinforce that a little. Historically speaking, that scenario is not really developed, but the city is the beneficiary of the DIA, and the bylaws, I believe the charter itself, the city at the end of the day approves actions of the DIA, and so therein is the opportunity for council, indeed, if it has a disagreement, to speak through the action that it is in order for it to take.
Well, Tim, will that relegate the trustees to just a board? Because the trustees have, when the authority was formed, the trustees were in charge and we were just the beneficiary. So the trustees of the authority, will that take their power away, or will they not be able to vote anymore on things that...
I don't see it taking their authority away. We have other authorities, such as the Tourism Authority, that is just newly formed. They have to take, everything has to be, the final approval has to come before this body.
Well, the final approval of the DIA normally has always had to come through here.
Tom, yep.
The hiring of a director by the city won't change the board's responsibilities, rights, duties at all. Not one word. And the only thing that it really doesn't change anything from the past. Even the previous director was paid by the city. I think this provides some clarity as to who the director, he or she, answers to and is employed by. But it really won't be any different than in the past. The key is to get a good director, and this simply won't change the DIA board's or the city's responsibility at all from a legal standpoint.
However, we do have a freeze on hiring in the city. We have, unless it's been lifted.
It's essentially, it's on a case-by-case basis. I mean,
and the employees, this is the second year our employees have not received a pay raise.
Well, we haven't submitted a budget for 18-19 yet.
Well, did they not? They did not receive a pay raise last year.
Last year, you're correct.
Right.
Yes.
And I just feel like that with all we got going right now, I don't really feel like we need to hire. We don't need to go there, I don't think.
Well, and I forgot to mention this at the onset. In the previous years past, the city has sent anywhere, typically, $400,000 to $500,000 a year over from the utility authority to the DIA to pay for the overhead and expenses, because the ordinance that provides the quarter penny, which is equal out to about $1 million a year now that goes toward the economic development. Cannot be used for, as you know, for overhead and expenses. Um, Staff, we looked at several different other options, and I think one of the things that's nice is that we found the option of a funding source, which is going to be primarily coming from the franchise fee that we're now starting to receive as a result of the OG&E expansion for CMC. We've been told that that's going to be somewhere between 200 and 225,000 a year. So it's in effect that is going to be utilized. I'm not. So I'll give any rumors. So I'm not saying this person's going to get 225,000 a year. I'm just saying it will, in effect, be able to help offset the cost of this employee without. And one of the things I think we need to realize is by doing this and having them house here and utilize our city staff and be part. One of the things that the DIA has done a great job is talking about Team Durant. And I think by having this person here and having them part of the team of employees and our staff, our good employees and our good staff, that will be beneficial as well, because building those relationships in-house will great. But the thing I think everybody also needs to realize, we will no longer be sending 400, 500, 600. Some years we were sending 800,000 a year from our utility authority over to the DIA for their overhead and oversight. That will no longer happen. This person, like I said, will be housed here, office here, and then that will allow us, essentially free up 400,000 to 500,000 a year that we typically were sending from the utility authority to the DI to offset the overhead. Will no longer happen.
Tim, I could not find anywhere in the trust authority where it said the city had to give them the money. All it said was that they could not use
You're
a
correct.
quarter of a cent.
And we didn't give them the money last year. We did not give it to them.
But you just said it would keep us from having to give them all that money every year.
What I'm saying is, historically, we have done that.
But we don't have to.
And
The
this
trust does not say
it's not required, no ma'am.
The city has agreed on an annual basis, I believe since 1998, for those funds to go to the DIA on an annual basis through a contract that was renewed annually, which, yes, the opportunity for the contract to be renewed or not could have happened. This past year, as Tim, city manager, just referred to, the city did not budget nor approve funding to the DIA. And we've been working on this contract as a result of that, probably not just a couple of months, but several months. And I think this contract brings us to really a concluding time, and so that we can move forward. I know the interim director, as we speak, Mr. Paul Bunce, former city manager, has been working diligently. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting in the morning, and hopefully we'll have an announcement soon of a company locating here. But the position is, I think we're in need to fill that, is my opinion. Council members can determine themselves, but in witnessing the last several months with Mr. Bunce and the activities that still go on over there on a daily basis, the need is still there for us to continue our economic development program and our partnership with the DIA.
Tim, if that position is not in place for the DIA, then what happens to the DIA?
Well, the DIA will still exist. It's going to be very difficult for them to carry out, I would say, their mission and goals without somebody as a day-to-day doing
Liaison person.
yeah, somebody that's going to be the administrator there, such as what Mr. Bunce has been able to do for the past 6 months. And like the mayor said, he's done an outstanding job. I mean, he has a lot of historic knowledge as to the DIA and its role. But the dilemma that faces the DIA is the fact that the ordinance that provides the funding restricts any funding going toward overhead and administrative expenses. That's where Mayor Tomlinson brought up for several years the city's had a contract with the DIA to provide the funding to oversee that. Last year was a particular rough year budgetarily, and it was the recommendation, and the council approved at that point to not send the 500,000 over to the DIA out of the utility authority. We were scrambling around just to pay the bills that we had. So it's going to be very difficult, I would say, for basically a volunteer basis, because they do get inquiries. What people may not understand, the DIA gets calls from various companies looking for relocations. We get several calls from the Department of Commerce looking for RFPs for companies. The one that the mayor had alluded to a few moments ago, I mean, it could be a substantial gain for our community. I mean, substantial gain. If it's just based on a group of volunteers, and somebody's got to be able to do the site visits, put the packets together. When those things happen, when we have a site visit, it's not just them coming down and saying, "This is the land. We hope you like it. We hope you put your company here." There has to be several things that happen. We have the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, the Employment Security Commission, typically some folks from the college, some folks from the VOTEC are here too to express their abilities to help specialize and train these individuals. The company that's possibly coming here is going to probably require some local training on different metal fabrications, specific metal fabrications. Our VOTECs jump in and help with that. And these are going to be really good paying jobs and bring folks here, hopefully that'll live here, because this company that's wanting to come here, for the example we're talking about, is possibly living here from the East Coast and locating their national headquarters here and sinking a substantial amount of money into our community. So those things don't just happen by themselves. They require work, and they require somebody on a day-to-day basis to be able to monitor that. So,
Tim, I understand they need a DIA director, but I don't understand why they can't amend Ordinance 1408 and put in there that the DIA director can be paid out of the quarter of a cent
the
sales
DIA
tax.
doesn't have the authority to amend that.
But we could.
Well,
The city
can I get us back on topic? We're here to consider the contract, and that's really, Councilmember Groovy, that's a whole nother agenda subject.
Well, I was just thinking, he said he's making it sound like they couldn't hire anybody if we don't pass this. And
I don't think so. I don't think he's in.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Mayor, if I may, that was an ordinance that was put in place by the voters of Durant. That's not something, that provision in the ordinance is not something that the industrial authority nor this body could amend. That's something that would have to go back to the voters, but you could.
Yeah. Any other questions regarding considering the contract between the city of Durant and the Durant Industrial Authority? Any other questions? If not, consider a motion for agenda item number 1. Do we have a motion? The mayor will move that we consider approval of the contract between the city of Durant and the Durant Industrial Authority. I put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
No.
Councilmember Groby,
No.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
No.
Mayor Tomlinson,
Aye. For the record, the nays are 3.
Yes.
The ayes are 2.
Yes.
Motion fails. Move to item number 2 on the agenda. consider to accept the awarded 17166 CDBG-ED 87 grant contract for the water and wastewater improvements to support the Steel Fab Inc. facility project C-2018-17. Ms. Becca.
Hi, good evening. On Monday, we received notification from Department of Commerce that we would receive a $1 million grant for water and wastewater infrastructure to support the Steel Fab project located on Country Club Road. This is indeed a DIA project they've been working on this for probably a year and a half, and the company will be bringing in some of their employees once they close down their Texas plant, and then they'll be creating at least 49 new jobs for our community. And so I'm presenting this grant award to you, requesting your approval for acceptance of the funds.
Any questions for Ms. Becca?
Becca, this is not a matching grant, is it? I mean, we don't have to put anything with it.
That's correct. Yes, 100% grant. Yes, and the company's private investment of $14 million will be the leverage required for the grant.
Any other questions for Becca? What's council's pleasure, please?
Move to approve CDBG ED 87.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. And item number 3 is to consider to approve the wall engineering work order DU-17-02 for engineering services related to the water and wastewater infrastructure to support the Steel Fab Inc. project C-2018-18. Ms. Becca.
Due to the necessity to expedite this project because we need to get the construction moving, as soon as I got the grant award, I started putting items for this agenda, and I placed the work order on for the engineer. However, because the grant won't be fully executed until tomorrow, we really cannot obligate funds. So, Tom, what I'm recommending to the council is that if you are approve this or make a motion to approve this work order, that is contingent upon the request for authorization to purchase the RFAP, which we placed on Tuesday's agenda, and the grant to be executed. That would be my recommendation. If not, then we would need to place this work order on Tuesday's agenda. But Commerce says that we can approve it contingent upon the grant contract being fully executed. So, Tom, what would be your thoughts on that?
I think it's okay to put it on contingent upon the approval, or either one really, put it on for Tuesday or pass it tonight contingent.
It would need to be contingent upon the grant award being fully executed, as well as the RFAP that would be presented on Tuesday.
If I had a recommendation, if I had to come down on either side, I would probably say move this to Tuesday's agenda, so that it's not contingent. If it was just contingent upon the execution of something passed tonight, I would say leave it on tonight. Since it's contingent upon the passage of a measure that's on for Tuesday night, I would say move this to Tuesday's regular agenda. We've still got time to do that.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate to table it?
Just, we can take no action
Okay.
this evening, and then this will appear on, along with the other agenda item
Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so then that takes us to item 4. Consideration to approve asphalt materials expenditure to be purchased through the OK State contract SW 081 for the necessary street repairs caused by the water line installation damage on Parkland and East Main Streets.
And these are the street segments, just like you said, Mayor, that were damaged due to the water installation. We do have money left in the grant budget that will fully pay for the materials. And because this amount exceeds the city manager's approval, right, I'm asking for your approval to purchase these materials.
And the city will, I guess, conduct the work.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. It is materials, you're correct. And the city crews will fix the roads, the streets.
Council's pleasure, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. If there are no objections, I'll entertain a motion to recess out of regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to recess out of regular session. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Let the record show it's 5:33. I'll call to order the special meeting of the Durant Airport Authority of April the 4th, 2018. Ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye. Sorry, here.
Trustee
Aye, here.
Groby.
Here.
Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here, for the record, all members are present. Thank you for being here. Our first order of business is to consider approval of a lease agreement of the large hangar at the Durant Airport with Hangar 10 Aviation, LLC, for the regional airport Eaker Field. Mr. Marty.
Yes, good evening, guys. So we've been approached by a customer with an opportunity to make a lease agreement for the large hangar. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I believe that somewhere in your material you will see a map that'll show an overhead view of which hangar we're talking about. The options on this would be an area for them to refurbish this hangar for us to help us put some money into it, and then of course, obviously, for them to utilize for their business. I've got some other data. We've included also an appraisal that we had done of the hangar rental rates, total appraisal. Actually, was that 64-page book that you saw in there. Pretty impressive from the appraiser. He went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and then of course the picture and the lease agreement. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have. I don't know which direction you want to go on this first. So.
Any questions for Marty?
Marty, are we talking about voting on this now? Is this what we're?
Mhm.
I have one question.
Okay.
I have a problem that there is no Hangar 10 Aviation LLC. They have not formed an LLC.
Is it a business name? Hangar 10 Aviation LLC. She says it doesn't show up.
Yeah, correct. There wasn't any LLC.
If this doesn't happen.
We're not asking the council to sign any additional documents. And within a few days, you guys approve that.
I think it should be made contingent on when the mayor signs the LLC, signs the,
You guys want to make a motion?
I think.
in other words, when the mayor signs, you will have the LLC.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's a problem.
Mayor wouldn't
Attorney
sign it until
can always do
the
it.
city attorney says that's in order.
is this okay to make this contingent since they are not an LLC, which they don't have to be, but they're saying they are and they have a name?
Sure, it can be passed contingent upon the formation of an LLC in the, as set forth in the agenda, but that's right.
And then have it so that when the mayor signs it, whenever
Sure.
he signs it, it would be, they would attach that to the signing papers.
Well, I
wouldn't
don't
have
know that they would have to attach anything, but they could provide a certificate of
certificate
incorporation.
that- yeah,
As long as they, as
and
long as
good
they've,
standing.
as long as they've had it approved and documented, we'll be good with. But contingencies should be fine.
And are we, let's see, consider approval of the lease agreement. So we've got the lease agreement here, right?
Mhm.
As one of the documents.
Yeah, and it to be honest, it's kind of based on our corporate lease agreements, but there was enough unique situations in this one. You don't automatically get the authority to sign. If I have somebody sign a new lease agreement with the corporate leases we have out there, you've already approved that document at some time in the past. So because we had to alter this one, it comes back to you individually. And there are some stipulations in there that we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of.
And
So-
they're in there now.
Yeah, this is the agreement that you're
Okay,
looking at
but
currently.
This consideration is of a lease agreement that's
Mhm.
going to clearly be contingent upon the formation of a LLC.
Mhm.
I always like to not defer necessarily, but refer to our city attorney and his review of this contract. And Tom, you reviewed this contract.
I have, Mayor.
Is everything in order? I guess would be my next question. In your opinion?
From a legal standpoint, I would say that it is. There are a couple of provisions that are not what I recommended, specifically with regard to insurance. You'll see in paragraph 11. I believe there needs to be stronger language in there that protects the hangar that we are leasing to the lessors. In the, if there were a negligent act by the lessor or one of their tenants to cover the building, there's not that paragraph was as amended by their counsel. I think it does provide some protection to the city, but my recommendation was that it be clearer that there is an insurance coverage specifically to cover the building, so that it's not part of a general liability policy that the city is, fighting for a piece of if the building were to be destroyed by negligence of the lessor. Is it likely? No, it's not. No insurance claim is ever likely, but it's always a possibility. The building will be covered for damage by a weather event or something like that by the city. We're the owner, or the airport authority. They're the owner of the building. But if there were a negligent act by the lessor, I don't believe paragraph 11 provides clear enough coverage or clear enough language that we, as the city or the airport authority, would be covered for that loss. It does provide some indication that we would be covered. My suggestion was that it be clearer.
Question.
Other than that, the contract is largely as negotiated.
Okay. And Marty, you know how I am on insurance.
Hmm?
Okay. Tom, I think you mentioned are we the leasee or the leaseor?
Let's see.
Leasee. The leaseor may have.
I'm sorry. The airport authority is the lessor.
Oh, okay. So the leasee may have some sub-leasees. Is that fair? Is that a fair question?
It is.
Okay. Is there anything in here that would provide the requirement for a minimum amount of insurance from those subleasees?
No.
Okay, so that I understand, is that a part of your concern then? I would guess it is. But
To some degree, but more so with the party with which we are directly contracting tonight.
I mean, I'm good with city attorney, city managers, but presentation of this, I think we have another maybe contingency and a motion here for me that along with the LLC contingency that the city attorney, city manager, and potential the LLC folks, David, your folks, and your attorney come to some conclusion on.
Maybe if I could give the council an example of my concern, then the council can decide, or the authority can decide what you want to do with it. But my concern is if there's an act of negligence by an employee of the party here.
Tom, for me, but for others, an act of negligence is not an intentional thing. It can be an accident.
Sure.
I mean, something that just happens. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to.
If they're working on an airplane and there's not something done that should have been done, there's a fire and there's a loss that's sustained and the building is significantly damaged and $15 million worth of contents and aircraft or whatever is damaged as well. If there's a $1 million policy, the authority then is fighting to get pennies on the dollar of that policy because there's $16 million worth of loss there. I would feel more comfortable advising the authority to have the lessees have a specific policy that covers the structure, the building itself, rather than the authority having to fight for a piece of a general liability policy that may not be sufficient to cover all of the contents in the building. So that's my concern. It's not likely to ever come up, but it's certainly a possibility, and that was my concern over the insurance issue. I don't think this paragraph 11 sufficiently designates or requires the lessee to have a policy where the authority is the beneficiary in an amount sufficient to cover damage to the building, rather than just as a claimant to a general liability policy.
Sorry. Do we insure any of the other hangars that are out there currently?
The ones that we own.
I think they're all insured, right, Cindy? Yeah.
Do we insure them for the structure, or do we insure them for whatever someone chooses to put in there? Because I know some people have junk in there and some people have airplanes in there. So
Yeah, it's strictly for the structure, not for the content.
So all of the leases require the tenant to do that? Like the tenant you're asking the tenant to do that. So do all the tenants and all the hangars we have to have that same insurance? Because if not, then
I would have, that's a good question.
I don't think we have contracts like this though in place with those.
We may not. My concern about this is a tenant that's running a for-profit business out of a city-owned hangar and proposes to even sublease that city-owned hangar, and that's my concern. And the authority can do whatever they want to with it. That's my concern from a legal standpoint.
We do have some hangars out there that are for-profit
Sure.
businesses, a few of them. So I'm not certain that we require them to have that similar coverage.
And keep in mind, this wouldn't necessarily preclude the city from making a claim against a tenant. If a tenant damages the building, if the party here damages the building negligently, even if there's not insurance to cover it, we could still make the city or the authority could still make a claim against that tenant. It'd be a lot easier if there was a specific policy in place to pay any damages that were incurred.
Well, from what I've seen, if that plane out there runs into our building, it's going to do more damage to that plane than our building.
Sure, how much that?
Are there any other questions regarding consideration of the lease agreement, the large hangar at Durant Airport with the potential LLC, Hangar 10 Aviation LLC? Any other questions for Marty? Any other questions for the city attorney? The city manager? If not, are we ready to consider a motion with its contingencies?
Move to approve the lease agreement with the contingency that Hangar 10 Aviation LLC provides proof of LLC.
I second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Under discussion and questions, I just would ask Vice Mayor if he would consider adding to that motion the insurance contingency.
I think I'm good where I'm at
Okay.
just because no one else is required to do that. I don't think.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk or secretary, record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Yes.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. The secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned out of the special meeting of the Airport Authority. Entertain a motion to reconvene in regular city council session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. We're back into regular session, which we'll pick up on the Durant City Council special meeting agenda at item number 5 under executive session. Entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
No.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. We are in executive session. We have a council member who chooses not to participate in our executive session by voting no. So I guess, does that preclude that member from? Okay.
She just voted no.
We're in executive session. Shall return.